Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome. My name is Francisco Servent. For those of you that I haven't met before, with Keystone Law Firm and Lifestyle Planning and our joint program, the Retirement Management Office. Today, I'm pretty excited. We have a guest from Lifestyle Planning, our certified financial planner, Karmi Gutman, who is going to talk about something that, honestly, as a young estate planning attorney, I thought I understood, and I kept finding things I didn't understand about annuities. They are a beast. These are custom created things by insurance companies, and so there's just a gigantic variety out there of types of annuities and how they're owned and held and options you have and benefits you can get. And so when he said, "Hey, I've got an idea for something," and he said this, I just went, "Oh my gosh, please, yes, teach this to all of us." So I'm really excited for Karmi to teach us all about annuities and how to understand them quickly. So if you have an annuity, or you think you do, I suggest take a minute, go grab it, go grab the last statement you got from it, so you can follow along, because he's going to walk through some actual live real statements and show you what each of the different parts mean. And while, like I said, there's a million different types of annuities, you'll probably be able to find similarities and help you understand what you have. So that's what we're going to do today. Really excited about it. Just a couple quick housekeeping items. First, we are recording this webinar, and it is open to the public. So while we will have Q&A later, I just let you guys know whatever your questions are, we welcome them. We'll do our best to answer them here, but this is open to the public, so please hold as much financial and private information back as you want, because this is open to the public and we are recording it. We're going to share it publicly on our YouTube channel later. So if you have a private question or something more sensitive, then let's get you a private conversation to actually talk about that. I do want to let you guys know we have our next webinar coming up, and I just want to plant a seed for that real quick. That is on September 16 at noon next week, by yours truly, myself, and I'm going to talk about tax strategies for saving the taxes that are going to eventually be due out of your IRAs. So if you have IRAs or 401ks and you're just looking at that as a big tax bill, join me next week. We'll post the link to register in the chat here before we sign off today. So look out for that post and come join me with that. But with that, I want to pass it over to Karmi. Karmi, if you would flip through the next two slides, because I want to make sure everybody has a chance to read all the fine print. You can read this later on the recording, but just all the disclosures. Obviously, this is not specific financial advice today for anybody's situation. This is general information of an educational nature. I hope you find it useful. I think you will. If you have questions, we're going to have time for that. If you have very private questions, then we'll talk about how to schedule a time to speak privately with us so that you can keep your information confidential. But any decisions you want to make about your personal financial situation, please speak to a professional before you do so. Other than that, Karmi, I will kick you off, man. I'm excited to see what you have. And I know every time I talk to you about annuities, I learn one more thing. So I'm also excited about today, man. So welcome and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Francisco, and good morning, everyone. Looking forward to knowledge share with you all today. So what I have on the docket for everyone is we're going to take what I'm hoping is 30 minutes where we're going to cover two types of annuities that most people have. We'll cover some key points that I think are going to be very important just to be aware of. We'll talk through, obviously, my goal is at the end of this presentation and knowledge sharing discussion we have today is that you'll have a better understanding of whatever type of annuity you have, so that you can make an informed decision if you need to change the investments within it or potentially look and make a change, or just so you just have some peace of mind knowing that the annuity you purchase, however many the days, years, ago is still the right fit for you. So like I said, we'll go through two statements today. One is going to be an accumulation annuity, which is designed to protect you from the market and grow. And then the next one is going to be an income annuity. Exactly how it sounds, it is designed to give you a guaranteed source of income for a certain period of time. So I'm going to bring up the statements so that you guys will be able to see, and we'll go through it together. The two that we'll be going through is going to be, one is with F&G annuities, and then these, which is going to be the income annuity, which we'll cover first. And then the next one will be with security benefits, which is the accumulation or growth annuity. So bear with me while I share those statements, and we'll rock and roll from there. So I'm hoping you guys can see this. From what I can see, it looks like you guys can see it. But to get started, usually, I want to make it very clear, annuities are designed to solve for three problems, okay? The first problem, it is to either protect you and your portfolio from any market risk, and then also to provide a guaranteed source of income based on the credit worthiness of the company issuing it. Okay, that's usually the first problem that an annuity is designed to solve, either an accumulation or an income annuity. The second thing that an annuity could be designed to solve is long-term care assistance. So sometimes, and you'll, as a spoiler alert, you'll see that will be a benefit with this F&G annuity. There is some assistance, and I'm very clear to say assistance and not long-term care, because this is not classified as a long-term care insurance. Because if you have long-term care insurance, if you're familiar with that, there are certain tax benefits. If it is classified as long-term care insurance, this is not the case. Any annuity that has long-term care assistance is really just designed to help offset the cost of long-term care if you need care at home or if you need care in a nursing facility, okay? So it's really designed for people or those who have difficulty qualifying for long-term care insurance. An annuity could help solve that. And then the last part is really to provide a guaranteed legacy or a death benefit if your goal or one's goal is to leave a specific amount of money for whoever you want to bless whenever that time comes. The only time where we have seen annuities not be in the best interest, or we've seen people that we've partnered with or we've had the opportunity just to review their annuities with, is when it was marketed to them without solving one of these three goals. And that's usually where we found frustrations arise, okay? So remember, if annuities are really designed for three things: protection against the market, to give with in tandem guaranteed income, long-term care insurance, and to provide a guaranteed legacy or a death benefit, okay? So let's go through the statement. So usually statements are provided over a once a year. Sometimes you'll get lucky and it'll be every 6 months. From what I've seen, most are done once a year. When you look at your statement, there's going to be two things on the front page you should always be aware of. The first one's going to be your tax qualification status, okay? Why this is important is depending if it's an IRA, which would be classified as a qualified annuity. Sometimes you'll get lucky and they'll be straight out and say, this is an IRA annuity. Great, then you know exactly what it is. An IRA or qualified annuity, or a non-qualified annuity, meaning like in this situation, it is a non-IRA, it will be taxed differently. So in this situation, because this is a non-qualified annuity, any monies that get taken out from this is going to be taxed uniquely. So what I mean by that is, in this situation, we have an account value of $42,000 for this specific annuity. $42,953.44. The initial premium, that's the amount you originally pulled in, okay? When this was purchased at that issue date of April 8th, 2021. Why those numbers are important is for this type of annuity, which is a non-qualified annuity, what you are going to pay taxes on is the difference between that $42,099.68 and whatever the account value is here. So we're talking about $900 or so is what would be taxable to you if you take money out. And this will all be ordinary income. So $900 would be added from Uncle Sam's point of view, would be as if you made an extra $900 from income, Social Security, etc. So it's very important just to keep that in mind. Okay. So just to remember that tax qualification status is very important because it will tell you what your taxation most likely liability will be if you end up wanting to take money out, or what we'll cover next is a surrender. Okay. The issuance date is also important because that is also another term used as your anniversary date. So every year on April 8th, 2020, in this situation, April 8th, this was a statement from April 8th, 2024. April 8th, 2025, this year, you will get a new statement, right? And at that same time, you will also get a fund letter from the company saying, guess what? You get to change your investments. So whatever investments that you originally put into this product or any annuity product at the end of around the anniversary date, usually around the anniversary or issuance date, depending on the statement, on whatever terminology they use, they will issue a separate letter that tells you have 30 to 45 days to change the investments within it. We'll talk about that a little bit, but because this was just front and center, I wanted to make sure we covered that. Then the last thing is that surrender charge. So if you're not familiar what a surrender charge is, this is essentially the cost of getting out of the annuity prematurely. So this product was issued in 2021. The surrender ends April 8th, 2035. So we have a 14-year essentially of a period of time where if you were to take distributions from this prematurely or above what we call the free withdrawal amount, which we'll cover in just a few minutes, you will get charged a fee for that. Okay, so it's very, very important that you understand when the policy was issued and when the surrender charge ends, because if you do it beforehand, there's a very good chance you'll pay some fees and penalties. All right, so we'll continue going through the statement. So sometimes, or I would say most of the time, they're going to give you this fun little accounting of this is what you had beginning of the year, this is what you had at the end of the year, minus any costs or riders. So in English, those riders are add-ons to the policy. This is usually where you get those additions to solve for a certain problem. So a rider can be for guaranteed income, it could be for long-term care assistance, or it can be for a guaranteed death benefit. Unfortunately, those usually cost a little bit extra, and that's why they will notate that on your statement of these are the fees that you paid over the year, and those are deducted from whatever was put in plus any growth, okay? As we grow down, usually the statements will have a very detailed explanation of what exactly happened from when your money was put in, April 8th of the time of the April 8th of the year, plus or minus any type of adjustments, okay? F&G is very good at making sure you understand what happens if you wanted to get rid of the annuity, so we'll talk through it. So at this time, because this statement is from April 8th, 2023 till April 8th, 2020, regards to what exactly would be if you were to get rid of this annuity. So at the time, there was a bonus that was paid. So what that was if you put in $42,000, they would give you up anywhere from 7 to 10% as a bonus in year one. The catch is, though, you withdraw it in any period of time. There's called a vesting period. These usually will depend on the contract, okay? So in this situation, they're saying you have this value of that $42,953.44 that's in the account, but you don't really get that because they're going to claw back whatever was not vested from the bonus that they originally gave you. They also will charge a specific early withdrawal penalty. That's that fees or set of fees that they will charge you to get out of this annuity. Okay, they have to be very upfront about that. They cannot surprise you with that. If they do, you probably have some legal recourse against them. Okay. The next thing, which most people are probably not familiar about, is what this market value adjustment is. So in plain talk, what that is insurance companies, when they take your money and provide you with an insurance contract or an annuity contract, they invest those proceeds into usually a very safe bond portfolio or a bond equivalent portfolio, because they do not want monies to be invested in the stock market, because as you and I probably know, markets can shift very rapidly, and they want to make sure the money is there if they need to make a payment for someone who wants to be able to start withdrawing from their annuity. So that market value adjustment is actually how does their bond portfolio perform in response to any changes in interest rates from the time that you were investing with this annuity. So typically what you'll find is during rising interest rate environments, it is more costly for the insurance company to essentially liquidate their bonds, because when interest rates rise, bond prices go down, right? So the interest that they're getting and the prices that they're getting to raise the money to pay you it gets much harder for them to raise the money. So as a result, they're going to charge you a much larger market value adjustment fee to get out of this product if you decide to end your relationship with them before the surrender date. Keep in mind, in this example, it's April 8th, 2035. But it also can work in your favor, right? When interest rates go down or may go down, which is actually in our situation right now, over the next 6 to 12 months, Jerome Powell gave a very strong indication that interest rates will be lower than what they are now over the next 6 to 12 months. So it will actually work in your favor. So there will actually be some money credited back to you, because the bonds that they have protecting them so that they can pay your annuity contract will be worth more, right? If they had bonds that were paying 5 and the new market rate is 3, their bonds are going to be worth more. So they will be able to liquidate those bonds and be able to pay your income stream or benefit, etc. So it is one of those things where it can work in your favor, because they will give you more money if you choose to surrender prematurely. Okay. The only time that we will make a recommendation, or one should make a recommendation to surrender the product early, is if there's something better, right? Where you can get into trouble is when you tell someone to get out of an annuity prematurely and it doesn't end up in their best interest. That's how one goes to jail. That's not how people want. That's not really an ideal strategy to end up in jail. But essentially, I wanted to make sure we covered that. And that last point is some annuity companies, they will essentially provide a guaranteed amount of what your policy will actually be if you choose to surrender it. So in this situation, that surrender value at April 8, 2024, that's that minimum guaranteed surrender. And usually that's around like 87.5% of whatever you put in on average. It just depends on the policy. Okay. And like I said, like Francisco said earlier, we'll obviously take some time at the end to answer questions, but I just want to make sure we cover a lot of different things so that hopefully that it will be an assistance to y'all as you guys look through your statements. Now, I mentioned that there is a capability earlier to be able to withdraw funds from your annuity without penalty. So that's what's called the penalty-free withdrawal amount. So typically after the first year, so meaning if you, in this situation, if you would have bought this in April 8, 2021, on April 9th, 2022, I always recommend waiting a day after the issuance or after an anniversary date, you have the capability to withdraw up to 10% of whatever is in there based off the account value, not the surrender value. Okay, just to be very clear. So in this situation, they're saying Again, it's not always 10%. Usually it ranges anywhere from 5 to 10, but F&G makes it very clear. As of this date, you could pull that $4,095.78 from the annuity without getting any fees or penalties. Now, that does not necessarily mean it'll be tax-free. This is why you have to just make sure you review what type of annuity is this? Is this an IRA? Is this a non-IRA, etc.? And then also make sure if it is a non-IRA, is the account value above what you originally paid? Because that usually is a good chance that that will be, at least that growth will be taxable to you as ordinary income. Okay, so just something to be aware of. And then just an extra credit thing regarding non-qualified annuities, because I know Michelle is on the phone and she'll probably get mad at me if I don't mention it. Any non-IRA annuities must be in the name of your trust. Okay. Again, non-IRA annuities should be owned in the name of your trust. The reason for that is God forbid you go in, get incapacitated in any sort of way, your successor trustees, whoever, can then utilize those monies to take care of you. So again, very, very important. If it is a non-IRA annuity, it should be registered in the name of your trust. Now I won't get in trouble with Michelle, so I'll keep going. So we mentioned that some annuities, specifically this one is an income annuity. This was originally designed to solve for one of the problems I mentioned, to provide guaranteed income over their lifetime and to provide long-term care assistance. Okay, so you'll see that income base is higher than the contract value. At first glance, you might be thinking, great, I can pull all that money out. Unfortunately not. If you read the contract, that income base is a guaranteed amount of money that they will pay you, but they'll only let you take certain payments of that, certain portion of that every year until you've reached that number. Typically, how you win against the insurance company is you live longer than their life expectancy table. So let's say that at this situation, you're getting close to that 51,000. They're not going to turn off the annuity if you get to that point. They will continue to pay if you live past their life expectancy tables. Okay, so typically it's usually in the best interest for an annuity to be when one's younger. However, it just depends on the circumstances. But in this situation, they give you the calculation saying if you wanted to turn on your income rider or your guaranteed withdrawal amount, it just varies per contract, you will get $1,800 a year. Okay, that's very clear. It's never a month. They'll always tell you the annual amount. They will have to be very specific if it's monthly or annual. Okay. Again, depending on if it's an IRA or a non-IRA, there will be some different taxation for that. So it's just important to first understand, is this an IRA or a non-IRA? Because the taxation will be different. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This also has a capability to solve a problem too, which is long-term care assistance through a long-term care assistance rider. So in this situation, some annuities will give you the capability to get care at home if you're unable to meet 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living. So those are toileting, eating, bathing, moving from one surface to another. I think I mentioned getting dressed. There's about 6 of them. It's hard to remember all of them at the top of my mind. However, as long as you can't meet 2 out of those 6, they will essentially double whatever that guaranteed withdrawal amount is for a certain period of time. Okay. So in this situation, if God forbid this person needed to get long-term care assistance for a certain period of time, anywhere from 2 to 5 years, they will get that 1,800 times 2. So we're talking about 3,600 a year. And that will continue under 2 circumstances, like I mentioned earlier, if it goes between 2 to 5 years, or the contract goes to 0. So it's very important to remember that anytime you take a distribution or you turn on your withdrawal amount, your contract value, right, this $42,953.44 will drop, okay, by whatever you take out. Again, the annuity is an insurance product designed to make sure that you never run out of money. That is the risk that you are transferring to the insurance company when you're buying an income annuity. Okay? So your contract value will drop with whatever you take out. So once this goes to zero, all you will be left with is whatever the guaranteed payment amount is. So utilizing the example before, right? When in this situation, if this person, heaven forbid, had a long-term care event, the amount being withdrawn would be doubled, so about 3,600 or so. If he utilized that for a year or two or three, they will continue to pay that 3,600 until the earlier of this goes to zero, or whatever time frame that is mentioned in the policy. Typically, it's 2 to 5 years. And then once the contract goes to zero, don't panic. What will happen is you'll just get whatever that guaranteed withdrawal amount is. Okay, so you never are left with nothing. You will always get what is guaranteed to you, which is that income guaranteed amount, if that's the policy that you bought. Now, it's very important just to remember one thing: every company is different, but usually to qualify for this benefit for long-term care assistance, you either have to have been in the policy healthy for at least a year or anywhere sometimes 3 years. So heaven forbid you get incapacitated before that 3 year, you will not get that long-term care benefit in this contract specifically. So it's very important to look and review to see when does that long-term care assistance provide kick in. So typically if the health isn't looking so well, you want to make sure that you're putting your money into annuity that would essentially give you the best chance to be able to meet that requirement, so you get that protection. Because if you're incapacitated when you buy this, or if you're incapacitated before that time frame, you will not get that increased payment. So it's just important to remember. So I'm going to kind of speed up a little bit. So every year I mentioned that your investments, you have the capability within your annuity to grow your investment depending on whatever is allowed. Okay, what I mean by that is every company will have different investment indexes, or essentially investments that you can put that initial contribution you put in, so in this case that 42,000 or whatever is left over, into an account that will grow depending on what you're invested in. It can be up to 1 year, 2 years, etc. And they provide a table for you so that you can see, okay, I put in 41,000 in this Barclays 2-year Trailblazer fund. Because this is, you have to be very careful. Sometimes it's not always 1 year. So if it says it's 2 years, you won't get any money until the end of April 8th, 2025 in this situation. Okay. So they will highlight for you saying if there was anything credited during this time period. In this case here, there wasn't, because the person in this product was in a 2-year investment. So it will only pay after April 8th, 2025. Okay, so they'll look to see what did this index do from April 8th, 2023 until April 8th, 2025. And then the next day they'll credit if there's any gains. But they will highlight for you saying, okay, you put your money here, nothing was paid yet, but we'll show you what the rider cost fee is. And then if there's any, sometimes they'll have a guaranteed interest that will be given to you. It's not always, it just depends. And they'll tell you at the end of it, this is how much is left over. So it's just one of those things that the insurance companies always must provide to you how your annuity has performed over that year period. Now, I'm going to skip to the next important part. This specific annuity has a lot of different investment options. I'm not going to go through every single one. One, it will bore you guys to death. But more, it will just give you guys, I wanted to make sure that you can see what is typically provided in a statement. But what is most important is that you go to the section where they're going to show you what are the upcoming rates or potential returns your annuity can be for the upcoming year. Okay, so every year at your anniversary date or issuance date, so in this situation, April 8th, 2024, because this is an old annuity, 30 days from that date, you'll get a letter from them saying, guess what? You can change your investments. And how do you know which is the best investment to be in? It's not it is not so easy, but it can be helpful to understand what could give you the best probability to pick the right one. So it's important to know these couple things. A cap rate. So that's what's here in the middle. The cap rate, if it has one listed, I'm just going to utilize this 1 year S&P 500 annual point to point as an example. So in English, what they're saying is, if I were to be invested in this policy from April 8, 2023 till April 8, 2024, or on following years, April 8, 2024 till April 2025, they will only let you participate in gains up to 3.25%. That's what the cap rate is. So if the S&P 500 over that time frame went up 5, you only get 3.25. Okay. But if the market goes down 25, you will not lose any money. You'll get 0. Okay. So the cap rate is the maximum return that you can get on your policy. And that's essentially what pays the insurance company for protecting you. Okay. So the higher the cap rates, the better. The lower the cap rates, not so much. Sometimes you will see, like for this Barclays Trailblazer 2-year product, they will not have a cap rate, meaning your gains can be unlimited. And then when you think about it, there's this participation rate, which is essentially, if it doesn't have a cap rate, they will allow you to participate in gains up to 100%. If it says 100, if it's 110, it's exactly what it sounds like, right? If it was up 10% and you had a participation rate of 110%, right? It would be as if you went up 11%, right? 110, 10% of 100, you add 10, so 110, okay? Now, there's a very big catch that I want to make sure everyone's aware of. The insurance companies are not designed to be nice to you if by giving you a participation rate that's higher than 100. The reason why they're doing that is because if they didn't, the returns that you would be getting in any one of these products that have a higher participation rate would be very much underperforming the stock market, because these indexes that have these higher participation rates, they are designed to protect the insurance company. Okay, there's options and other types of investments within those that they are trying to control the risk, because how the insurance company wins is if they pay less. So they're trying to incentivize people. Well, you could get a high return if you're in them. But again, if you see a high participation rate, I would always stay away, because that usually means the index has all kinds of stuff that will probably not perform under compared to a well-diversified portfolio, or like something simple like the S&P 500. Now, I won't say that happens all the time. It's just, it should raise a red flag is what I'm trying to get at. And then the last thing is, if you see something that has a high cap rate and a high participation rate, but there's a spread, I would also be careful, because the spread in English is let's say the cap rate, and let's just utilize the 1 year S&P 500 here. It says it's going to be, this is a great example. The annual point to point with a fee. Okay, if it says that the cap rate is 6, that means you can get to a maximum up to 6%, right? A participation rate of 100 means, well, if it goes anywhere up to 6, you'll get the full amount. Okay, but a spread, if it had a spread of, let's say, 2 or 3%, that gets subtracted from your performance. So even though that the market gave 6 and you're eligible for 6, they will take away 3% or whatever the spread rate is and give you the difference. Okay, so it's very, very important that you understand what the cap rate is, which is your maximum return you can get no matter what the market does. The participation rate is how much will they let you participate up to if there is no cap rate. Or sometimes it can get really complex. You get all 3 plus a spread rate, which is just essentially a deduction to whatever your returns are. I know that's a lot, but there will be time for questions. But this is just very important to just get a basic understanding for, because you will get every year, 30 days from your anniversary date or issuance date, a new statement plus options of what the returns will be. And you'll get something fun like this in a letter from them. I think I included it here just so you could see. No, I didn't. So it'll actually be on the security benefit. So I'll make sure to cover that. One last thing before we move on to the next annuity very briefly. You will always have the option to be in, if you don't want to be invested in any of the indexes, they will give you a fixed amount or a fixed account. At this time, it was only paying 1%. Again, interest rates at that time were essentially zero, right? So they were paying a little bit better than zero. Right now, a fixed account should be paying anywhere from 3 to 5. Just something to keep in mind. So I want to make sure I want to leave time for questions. So I'm going to now move over to the security benefit annuity.
Real quick, Karmi, there was one
Sure.
question. Is there any beneficiary portion of an annuity?
Great question. So the answer is yes. So just like if you were to set a beneficiaries on a brokerage account or an IRA, you do have the capability to name beneficiaries if it's an IRA annuity or a non-IRA annuity. Okay. So typically, if it's a non-IRA annuity, your beneficiary should also be your trust if you have one. Okay. So it's very important that you name someone, because otherwise it will go to probate, and we don't want to do that. So very good question. All right, so now I'm going to move to the security benefit. And then just because I wanted to make sure we had a difference of annuities and taxation of annuities, I made sure we pulled an IRA annuity. If we remember, if it's an IRA annuity, it has anything that comes out of it, guaranteed income payments, any withdrawals, it will all be taxable. Okay, so if you take out $5,000 from it, it will be as if you made $5,000 in income for the year. So just something very important. For IRA annuities for beneficiaries, the law firm recommends, if you are married, you would list your spouse first. And then if you have a special retirement trust, that would be your contingent beneficiary, or the one that, heaven forbid, whoever you have as your primary predeceases you, it'll go to your retirement trust. Okay. Specific questions on that should be obviously want to go to your attorney of choice, but it's just a best practice. Not always does it make sense, but that's usually how it goes. So with a growth annuity, it's going to be a little bit more simple because typically they don't have any types of riders associated with them. They're really designed to do one thing, to provide protection in the market, and you get some sort of return. Okay. Again, keep in mind the issuance date, April 27, 2020. So that means April 27, 2025 or 2021 or whenever the statement is, you're going to get a new statement. In 30 days from that, you will get options to invest your investments in for the upcoming year. So utilizing the same example here, it shows you if you ever wanted to turn in the policy, there is a account value as of April 2024. What was the original amount previous, right? So from April 27, 2023 to April 27, 2024, what was in there? How much did it make? What's the current account value? And then the surrender value, security benefit, they don't give you all the calculations and such. They just tell you, if you wanted to get rid of it, you will only get 80,000. So essentially, to get out of this annuity, it's going to cost you 20 grand. That really hurts. So it's very, very important to remember that you always, if you want to get rid of an annuity, you want to be cognizant of when that surrender value is, or whatever you're being marketed to should at a minimum bring you above whatever the surrender value is through bonuses or performance, etc. Just important to remember that. Now, where the simplicity with these growth annuities come from is you put in X amount of dollars. They will allow you to invest those proceeds into different investment accounts. I'll also mention that annuities, income and growth annuities will usually provide some sort of death benefit, okay? The death benefit will almost always be equal to whatever is in your contract value before surrender, okay? So if you don't touch it, and whoever you listed as your beneficiaries or whatever's left over will go to whomever is listed as your direct beneficiary. So keep in mind, Even if you don't use it, there's a good chance something will be left over to your beneficiaries that you have assigned. Okay. So when we look at the investments of what this is invested in, you'll see that this specific product was in two different types of accounts. One was the S&P 500, which are most of us are aware of. That's the 500 plus securities. It actually isn't 500, it's like 510, which is annoying, but they didn't want to change the name. The 500 plus most prestigious companies, they'll let you participate up to a certain cap, and they're very clear. And what that cap is will be on the next page. And then 49% of that 100,000 will be in that account. And then the remaining 50.86 will be in this same index, right? The S&P 500 over a year period, but with a participation rate. So let's explain what those are. Here we go. Okay. So it explains to you how exactly did the account do. Okay. So when this person originally was in this annuity from April 27, 2023 till April 27, 2024, the index was at this value. It ended up being higher. That's the return. But because this was at a cap rate of only 4.5%, you only got 4.5%. So the insurance company got the difference. So 19% went to the insurance company as a cost for protecting you from the downside. Okay. Now there was some other options that have helped this specific client. This is where participation rates can be very, very helpful. And let's go through it. Okay. It's the same index, right? So it's the same rate of return, but what gets credited to you is different because 35% of this number equals 8.16%. Okay. So the participation rate can be valuable if the returns are higher and it exceeds the cap rate, right? The max return that you can get. Now, the only thing is that it's usually a very good idea to have a strong understanding of what the historical return for whatever index you're choosing. I can tell you for the S&P 500 is anywhere from, depending on the time frame, 6 to 10% a year. So the strategy is if the cap is anywhere near that historical average, it's almost always best to go with a cap rate that is in line with that. However, if you have certain beliefs that the market in any given year will be higher than that, it may make sense to do a participation rate. Okay. So meaning, like in this example, because the return was so high, 35% of that 23 that the index actually did resulted in a more return being given to him. Now, again, he didn't get the full 8.16 because it was 50% in the 4.5, so 50% at 8. So we're really talking he got credited, like we're rounding a little bit, like 6% in total, right? Half of the 4, half of the 8. You add them together, it's about 6. Okay. So I want to make sure that you guys see an example of a little bit more clean report of what the insurance company will send to you when they give you that notice that your anniversary date has come and now you get to change the investments. So they are required to give you what the new rates will be. Okay. And you'll get this you'll get this nice long spreadsheet of all the available accounts that you can put your money into. And they are required to tell you, okay, what is the fixed account? If I didn't want an investment, what is it going to pay no matter what? What is the new rate of whatever you're in currently, right? So the cap is staying the same, right? That's the maximum return you can get. The participation rate is you will get a certain percentage of whatever the return is up to that 35% portion, right? So if it turns 10%, you'll only get 3.5 because that's 35% of 10. Okay. So you'll get this long list. And then you will get in the mail a document that looks something like this. In this situation, this is the strategic growth of security benefit. They'll give you this reallocation request. In order to be accepted, has to be anywhere. It has to be received within 30 to 45 days of the issuance or anniversary date. Now, remember, it's always important to read the form because sometimes companies will have different rules. In this case, they wanted within 21 days of your issuance or anniversary date. And you'll have to fill it out and send it to them with your new choosing of whatever new investments you want it to be. But let's just say you missed this or you don't fill it out in any given year. Please don't panic. What will happen is whatever you were previously in will just roll over into the new year. So in this situation, the account will still be invested at 49% in the S&P 500 with a cap and 50% with the participation rate. They cannot change your investments without your permission. Okay. It's just more, they have to provide you with the opportunity to change it if you choose to do so. Right. Those were the two types of annuities and some of the examples I wanted to go through with y'all today, but I wanted to make sure we also left time for any closing remarks from Francisco, and then obviously any questions that y'all may have that I can answer. Because annuities, they have gotten a bad rap in the past. We can't control bad apples who market these annuities, but we can raise an understanding that a good annuity will be actually good if it solves for those three main goals we talked about: protection from the market, plus income, any long-term care assistance, if it's available, plus a legacy or a guaranteed death benefit. If it solves for one of those three problems, then it's very good chance that it was a good annuity that was marketed to you. So I'll open it up for questions at this time, and I'm happy to go into detail whatever y'all guys need me to go into.
It was one of the things you just told me recently, Karmi, that it really, really clicked, and you just said it, that annuities, they get a bad rap. There's a lot of people out there just selling them because that's the only thing they can sell, and so they sell it in every situation, which is, of course, inappropriate. But like anything out there, if it fixes a problem that you have, then perfect. But it's not the right tool for everything, every time, for everyone, because they have internal expenses and costs. They have restrictions. They're not immediately liquid, like the whole amount. You know, there's rules about how you can get access to your money. So it really has to, what you told me was like, it has to solve a problem. And if you don't have one of these problems, then you probably don't need an annuity. But if you have one of these problems, you know, you don't have enough income in retirement, you don't have long-term care insurance, you don't have one of those things you just mentioned, and you can't solve it another way, then look at an annuity and see if it can help solve that problem. That for me clicked big time when you explained it to me that way. But yeah, happy to take questions. I know one of the things I always get asked by clients is, I can't say always, but frequently is, I'm not sure if I have an annuity. You know, it's like they'll say, well, I have my IRA, and they'll bring in a statement and it'll have a few things listed on there. And actually some ways that financial institutions or advisors or companies produce their client-facing statements, it'll aggregate your various accounts and your various annuities. And so sometimes it'll sort of look like it's, here's your IRA. Yes, I mean, even my own mother-in-law, that's how her financial statement was prepared. It's like you had your IRA, but it was like your Schwab account, which was an IRA that was actually, some of it was in a money market, some of it was invested in the stock market, and then there was another account listed on that was an annuity with Allianz. And so in her mind, it was just part of this whole thing, which is not exactly accurate, You know, so if you're not sure if you have one, you know, definitely ask, and don't let them sit, because in the last few years, annuities have changed a lot with interest rate changes, and some of the annuities that were set up, you know, even in the last few years, but definitely 5, 7, 10 years ago, you should look at, is this one from back then still giving me the most I can get out of my money? And sometimes you can roll it from one to the other with no tax problems whatsoever, and you can just move it into something that's better and producing a better rates like Karmi talked about, or better benefits like Karmi talked about. They, while they feel like it's something you kind of set and forget, you really should have somebody helping you evaluate it on at least an annual basis. You know, should this thing stay where it is? And a lot of times the answer is, yep, leave it where it is. I hear Karmi say that a bunch. But sometimes, I mean, I remember one example where a client came back after a year. They'd got an annuity somewhere else, and they came back and they got their first year statement. They're like, this thing didn't make any money. Like it I think it had lost a little bit, and it was a big part of their retirement. And just a year later, there was a much better option for them with another annuity that had some bonuses and better features to it, that they were able to move it, even taking the surrender on that only after the 1 year. The new one was so much better, and so we were able to help them evaluate that and look at that decision and understand that letting it sit there was probably not in their best interest. So a couple examples. Anybody have any questions about anything we talked about, or any annuity questions you have? Or, you know, me and Michelle are here. If you have any estate or trust questions, we're happy to answer them. I'll go ahead and have Alexis drop in the link for next week's webinar. The topic, like I said, will be how to save taxes on your IRAs, which can include annuities. So just FYI, those IRAs, they are, like Karmi said, if it's coming out of an annuity or it's coming out of a investment account or any kind of account, IRAs, 401ks, those distributions are fully taxable, every dollar that comes out of it. And so next week, I'm going to talk about some ways. I think I have 5 or 6 different ways that you can help plan around that and manage that. And so if you want to get in on that, check out that link. Alexis just posted it. Click on that, sign up, and you'll get the invite. I think I heard somebody's hand go up. Or no, that was the post. Good. And look, if something here sparked a thought and you're like, I'm not sure, I'm not even sure what Karmi just said, it was all Greek to me, and I know I've got an annuity, I'm not sure. We happily do a review. There's no cost to it. There's no catch. There's no sales presentation. It's just a straightforward evaluation like Karmi just did for these 2 examples. And I'll drop a quick link to his calendar in the chat. If you want to grab a quick call with him, just click that, find a time that works, and he'll talk with you about what your situation is. It's all confidential. And if you want him to actually look at it, he'll tell you how to bring the paperwork in, and he'll meet with you again to give you some ideas. But if there's any way we can help on that, just on the annuity side, reach out to Karmi, schedule that call, and don't let it sit, because those, you know, there are just so many reasons why there are some good options to move it into a different one now with all the rate changes. I'm not seeing any questions come up, which means you must have done a great job, Karmi, and answered all the questions along the way, which I love. So we don't have to keep you all here longer than necessary. I thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate your attendance, and look out for this to be posted on our YouTube channel here in the next week or so. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy Wednesday. We'll see you guys all next week.